Hi folks, we will be completing our last Excel module tonight. You can follow along in your book on EX 113. Let's get started. So to make things a little bit easier, the start file that you can download from Blackboard for this chapter already has some things typed into it so that we can focus on formatting and the other skills of the chapter versus typing. So let's start by applying a theme to our spreadsheet. That's under page layouts. We're looking for themes and we want the Savon theme. Once again, remember that a theme controls the colors and the fonts in your document. So if you are looking for a color and it's not there, chances are you have not changed your theme. So now if you notice, I've typed the word January in cell B3, and we are going to change the alignment of the text in that cell. So to do it, on our Home tab, there's an alignment settings area, and you can see that I can change this, the degrees or the angle that the text is showing right here. This is my orientation indicator, my degrees box right here. So I'll put in 60 and click OK, and it will automatically put January at a 60-degree angle. And now I'm going to get my skinny cross, so my fill handle, hold down and drag across. We want all the way through June, so through G3, and I let go. And you'll notice since January is part of a series, it goes ahead and fills in the rest of the months for you. That works for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, January, February, March, April, May, and other things that are automatically in a series. Now in H3, I'm going to go ahead and type the word title and hit enter, and as you can see, it keeps the formatting and automatically rotates it for me. And then in I3, I want the word chart. Now if you notice, some of our text is running from one column into another, so let's change our column widths. So if I click on the A column, so the actual letter up in the top, it selects the entire column. And then if I hover over the boundary between the A and the B, hold my mouse button down and drag, you can see that it will pop up the width of the cell. I'm going for 38 as the width, 38.00. You can also right click on the column and choose column width and actually just type it in, which is my favorite way and what I think is the easiest, but it's up to you. So I want to select from B all the way through G, so make sure you start up on B with the down facing arrow, hold your mouse button down and drag through G. Then right click on your column and say column width, and we want this to be 14.5. We want column H to be 18.00. So the next set of directions is about entering text, which has already been done for you. So let's skip that part and go straight on to increasing the indent in a cell. So click on cell A5, and then you know that you can't use your tab button in Excel, because if you do, then it's just going to move to the next cell to your right. So if you need to indent text in a cell, you have to use on the Home tab in the alignment area the increase indent button. So go ahead and do that for A5, and then highlight cell B9 through B13, and we are going to increase indent for that area. So next we are going to copy a range of cells. So it's that same range, A9 through A13. And we want to copy these cells to a non-adjacent destination area, which means we can't use the fill handle. So just like we've done copying in Word, we're going to do the same thing in Excel. So to begin with, there are multiple ways to copy. One of the ways is in the Home tab. In the clipboard area, there's an option to copy. So I'm going to click on Copy. And then the place where I want to paste this starts in A19. So I'm going to click down in A19 and then hit my Paste button. You can also do Control-C. You can also right-click and copy and paste. All of those things are okay. Remember, there's a bunch of different ways to copy and paste. I do want you to notice down here in the bottom, this little option area. It's the Paste Options menu, and it is important in Excel because it allows you to do things like just paste the values and not necessarily the formulas, or to keep the old format, or to transpose. I mean, there's lots of options in here, so just know that that's available after you paste something. Next, we want to insert a row. So I want to right-click on top of the heading of the row 20, so on top of the number 20, and then choose Insert. It will automatically, since I selected a row, insert a row for me. And now I can type the words that I need, which are sales revenue for bonus. Notice that it keeps the formatting of the cells around it, which is nice with that increased indent. I do want to insert one more row. This time it's going to go above the word bonus. So I right click on row 19, I click Insert, and just to make sure it keeps the formatting this time, since it's going above the formatting, the areas that are formatted, not right in the middle, notice you have some insert options, and I can choose to format the same as below. And so in this case, I'm going to type the word margin. So now I'm going to go ahead and enter in some values, and as I do that, I'm going to go ahead and format them with the decimal places, commas, percent signs, all of that, so that I don't have to go back and change the number style later. It'll automatically format it for me depending upon how I type it. Okay, now I'm going to put in a formula to get the total of revenue. So I'm going to click in cell A4. Remember, always click in the cell first where you want the formula to appear. And then, since this is a pretty simple formula, I'm just going to use my sum button, make sure that it is formulating the cells that I want it to, and hit enter. I'm also going to go ahead and go up into cell H1, and I need to enter in the current date. So this is actually going to be a formula because I want it to change every time I open up my spreadsheet. So if I click my FX button and I choose date and time, there is an option for now. That means it will give me the current date and time as of now. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK for that. It will put in the formula for that. I'll click OK, and now I need to go and formulate how that looks. So I will click my number format dialog box, choose date, and in this case I want the 3/14/2012. That's the format that I want for my date, and I'll click OK. And it'll format my date like that. So every time I open up this spreadsheet, it will have a different date, which means as you're doing your project in SAM and you use this formula, it will differ than the screenshots that you see that SAM gives you. The next thing we are going to look at is the absolute versus relative cell values. And this will make more sense as we go through and you actually use them. But I want you to just notice the two different formulas. In the absolute formula, notice how A2 has dollar signs around it. And in the relative value, in the relative formula, that the A2 doesn't have dollar signs. So a quick explanation of that is relative is what you're used to. So when you enter in a formula and then you use your fill handle and fill across with that formula, the formula will change depending upon what cell it's entered into. For an absolute formula, you will enter in that formula, and when you fill, you use that fill handle to fill across or fill down. The cell with the dollar signs around it will not change no matter where you put it in your spreadsheet. So that's an absolute formula. The F4 key will be your friend here when you're entering in absolute values. And I'll show you how that works here in a second. So to begin with, let's click in cell B5 and we will start entering our formula. This will be a pretty complicated formula, so I suggest you just go ahead and type it in as it is. We talked about 5 different ways to enter formulas last week, and as we get into the harder formulas, this is why that we went through all of those different ways. So remember, every formula starts with an equals. I'm going to type in B4 for the first cell value, an asterisk for times, parentheses, 1, minus, and now it's time to put in my absolute cell reference. So first I want to type in B19, and then here's where that F4 comes into play. I'm going to hit my F4 key on my keyboard, and you notice it puts dollar signs around B19, and then I need my end parentheses. Now I'm going to explain this here in a second, but double check and make sure you have the right formula, or you see how I type that formula, because it's important. Worst case scenario, if you forget about that F4 key, you can always directly type in those dollar signs. Hit my enter key, and then let's come back up and look and see what this formula is saying. It's saying that it wants to multiply the value in B4 right here times 1 minus the absolute value of B19. So number 1 minus 78.75 right here in this margin. Now if you notice, this margin right here in this area does not have values in column C, D, E, or F. I will be filling this formula across, so that's why I want it to continue to point down here to cell B19 no matter what column the formula moves to. So let's go ahead and do that part now, and we'll take a look at what it looks like. So if I hover over my fill handle, I click and drag and fill across. You will notice now when I go to each, actually let me just turn on all my formulas. You can notice that no matter where it copied to, B19 was still the cell value. Now, the cell B4 in my original formula was a relative reference. So it says B4 there, which means that as it moves to the different columns, it changes. So C4, D4, E4, F4, and so on. But the absolute value, B19, stays B19 no matter what column it's in. Okay, so I'm going to undo what I just did with the fill across, because the book wants us to continue going through and entering in all the formulas and then fill them across at one time. I just wanted you to understand absolute versus relative references. So next up in B6, the formula that I want to hit is equals, and we want B4, so I can click in B4, that would be one way to do it, minus B5, and then enter. I could also just directly type that formula if I wanted to. And then I'm going to come on down to B9. Now B9 is a bonus, so think about this in terms of work. If you sell a certain amount of merchandise, then you get a bonus. So the formula that we enter here is going to need to be an if formula. If you earn this much, then you get this much. So to do that, I need to use my insert function bar. I'm going to choose the category to be a logical category, and I'm going to choose the if. And you can see it will tell you down here at the bottom what that formula does. It checks whether or not a condition is met and returns one value if it's true, if it has been met, and another value if it's false. So critical thinking here, guys. So I'll go ahead and I'll hit my equals button, and now I have to enter in the arguments for this test. So to begin with, for my logical test, I'm going to enter in B4 greater than or equal to B21, the absolute value of B21. So I enter in B21 and hit my my F4 key. So the logical test here is if B4 is greater or equal to the absolute value of B21, and then what value is going to be true? Well, it'll be whatever is in B20, the absolute value of B20. So I type in B20 and hit my F4 key. And if it's false, then you don't get a bonus. You get $0. So click my OK button. And let's go ahead and double click. So here's my logical test. If B4, so right here, if this amount is greater than or equal to B21, so let's scroll down a little bit, you can see B21. So if this amount is greater than this amount, then I get a bonus of this amount. So $55,000, $65,000, it's not true. This amount is not greater than that. So instead, since it's false, I get a $0 bonus. I hope that makes sense. Maybe when we fill it across, it will make a little bit more sense. But I'm going to continue going down. My commission is B4 times the absolute value of B22. So type B22, hit your F4 key. B4 times the absolute value of B23. So B23, hit my F4 key. B4 times the absolute value of B24. So I hit my F4 key. B4 times the absolute value of B25. And that brings me down to B14. And with that, I want to sum those values from above. So I can use my quick sum button. And my operating income is going to be B6 minus B14. So my gross margin minus my total expenses. And now if I hit my control accent mark, I can see all my formulas and double check and make sure they're correct. So let me switch back to my other view with my control accent mark. And then I'm going to go ahead and select all of those formulas that I typed, B5 through B16. I will hover over my fill handle and click and drag all the way across through column G, and then release. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my formulas one more time because I want to double check and let you see the difference between how the formula is copied if they were absolute cell values or if they were relative. So remember, relative changes as it moves across. So if I look at B10 right here, B4 is the relative cell in that formula. So as I fill it across, it changes to C4, D4, E4, and so on. Now B22 in that same formula is a absolute cell value, so it always is going to point to the value in B22, the commission. So even as that formula is copied across, it still refers down to the value in B22. It is an absolute cell reference. So by flipping on your formulas, your control accent mark, you can double check things to make sure that they've filled across like they should. I highly, highly recommend you do that before you turn in any work to SAM. One more thing to look at when we are looking at these formulas is our if formula. If you remember correctly, it was whether or not we could get a bonus. And to get a bonus, the value in row 4 had to be greater than the value in B21. So let's look. In the month of January, no bonus. because this value is less than $65,000. February, no bonus, this value is less than $65,000. But oh, hey, in March, the value is more than $65,000. So more than $65,000. So I get a $3,500 bonus. And same for my other months as well. So that's how an if formula works. It returns one value if the formula is true and one value if it's false. Okay, so now I need to enter in a total in the total column. So I will select cells H5 through H6, and then I want to go ahead and hold down my control key so that I can select a non-adjacent range, H8 through H14, and then I keep my control key down and click on H16. Then I release my control key and I use my auto sum button to put in totals for all of those cells at one time. So last, let me go ahead and put in my Sparkline chart. Last for this section, we are going to be doing more with this. But Sparkline chart, so this is like a mini chart that fits within a cell. So if I go to my Insert button, you notice that there are some Sparkline choices over here for cells. And in this case, we want to insert a line Sparkline. So I'll choose line. It's going to ask me for my data range. In this case, I want B4 through G4. I could also click and drag through this if I'd rather. I want that Sparkline chart to show in I4. And so I'll click my OK button. And it puts a mini chart that shows the revenue over the period of time, over the last 6 months. I can also change the style of this. So if I look, I have a special toolbar just for Sparkline. My Sparkline tools, especially for Sparkline charts, and there's a design area, and in my styles, I can choose a different style. So this case, I want Sparkline style accent 4, darker 25%. And once I've put in one, I can fill down. I could also change the type of my Sparkline chart. If, let's say, I don't like how that the line chart is looking, I could change it to column. So on that Sparkline Tools Design tab, in the type area, there's one that says column. And instead, I can see little mini column charts right there for each row. Okay, so now it's time to do some formatting. I'm going to format non-adjacent cells. So this makes it quicker if you know how to do this, but if you get stuck, remember you can always just do it one row or cell or area at a time. So to begin with, I want to select B4 through H4. Then, and only then, do I want to hold down my control key and select the rest of my ranges. B6 through H6, B9 through H9, B14 through H14, and B16 through H16. Then I release my control key, and now whatever formatting I do will apply to all of those cells at one time. So I want to actually click the number dialog box because in this case, I'm going to get nitty-gritty with how I do my number format. So if you need more options than just a simple currency, percent, comma style, then you'll want to use this number dialog box to be able to do it with more detail. So I'm going to choose currency. I want my decimal places to be 2. I want a $sign to be in the symbol list. And then I want negative numbers to be black but within parentheses. And I'll click OK. And it should format my numbers correctly. So now I'm going to select a different range. So remember, when you do this, when you're selecting non-adjacent ranges, always select your first range first before you even touch that control key. B5 through H5, hold down the control key. B10 through H13, release the control key, number dialog box, this time currency, 2 decimal places, no symbol, and I want negative numbers to be black and in parentheses. I click OK, and it formats it correctly. Now it's time to format some worksheet titles. So first I want to select all of column A, so I click on the A up with the column heading, and I'll choose to bold that entire column. And then I'll select A1, and I want the font in that cell to be 28 points. Set A2, I want to be 16 points. A1 through I2. And with that, I want my fill colors, so the background paint bucket, home tab paint bucket, fill color to be green accent 4. And I want my font color to be white, background 1. And then let me click off and you can see how it formatted it. So now selecting A3 through I3. I want the heading 2 style for that, so cell styles, heading 2. Then select A6 through H6. Hold down my control key. A14 through H14. Keeping that control key down, A16 through H16. Release the control key. For the cell style, I want total cell style. And then let me go ahead and select cell A4. This I want that green accent 4, and I want the font color to be white. So because I just chosen those colors before, if I click right on the paint bucket or right on top of the A, it will keep that same choice. So you can choose that or not. It might be best to double check, especially if you're doing that on a test. I can also use my paintbrush for this. So if I select cell A4 and double click my format painter, then I can do A6, I can do A16 and then click and drag all the way through I16 and let go. And it'll go ahead and just copy, it won't copy the words, it will just copy the formatting. So we've done that in Word. If you can't figure out how to do that, you can go ahead and format them one by one. It does not matter. Pick your favorite way. Okay, a few other little formatting things. So we'll start with A18, and I want the font in that area to be 8 points. I want to italicize and underline the font in that area. And then I will select A19 through B25 and change the font in that area to 8 point as well. A18, that whole area through B25. I want to use that same background and that same color. Oops, and I did one too many, so let me try that one more time. Here we go. And that's it for this section of this project. It's a great time to take a break. So get up, walk around, go outside, do some yoga, do whatever makes your mind clear, and then come back and we will start the second section of Excel Module 3.